Let's see if I'm live yet. It looks like I'm about to be live. Okay, yeah, I am as of right at this moment live. So let's see here. Yeah, great. Okay. Looks like I'm live. Looks like everything's working okay. Well, really good to see you all. Thanks so much for checking out this video. Thanks so very much for checking out my channel. I really appreciate it. And we got some stuff to talk about today. I know that there's going to be some folks joining us later, but I wanted to kick it off with some discussion questions that I actually had for everybody who's watching right now. So I hope you all will consider weighing in on these questions in the comment section. I kind of made some slides just to go through some of these questions. This is the first thing that I wanted to talk about. So this, if you haven't seen this, this is a really interesting development that's happened, and there's some new developments that happened just in the last hour on this. So I wanted to talk about this. So hopefully, folks who are in this comment section who are on the channel are aware of the debate that recently happened between Mohammed Hijab and Avery from God Logic. And if you didn't know about this, it was a really fascinating debate. I haven't featured it on the channel. My friends at TNC Apologetics did a reaction video and a commentary, and that is actually one of the few places that you can actually see this video. The reason, hi, Mr. Robot, good to see you. The reason why you can't really see this video anywhere is because Mohammed Hijab has been copyright striking content creators of all sizes who have posted comments on this video. So really interesting. But so anyways, I'm curious to know what you all think about this. My ethos on this is not to take sides on the debate between God Logic and Mohammed Hijab. I don't actually get into any of the topics around the debate between Christianity and Islam for my own personal reasons. I don't go that deep into it. But to me, this strikes at an issue that is more deeply around free speech. Mohammed Hijab agreed to the debate. He gave consent to be recorded. He gave consent to God Logic to be on live stream with him. And he actually said in the video that he's not going to copyright strike the debate, even if he loses. So this was a direct quote from him in the debate. And yet, after the debate was posted and it was clear that his performance was probably embarrassingly bad, Hijab copyright struck God Logic's channel. And just in the last hour, he copyright struck God Logic's other channel, God Logic 2.0, which is the other channel where he sometimes posts clips. So what do you all think about this? I think this is not something that I wanted to weigh in on. But again, this is a significant issue, not just for what we're talking about on this channel in terms of the debate between theology and Christianity and Islam, but I think it's important from the aspect of free speech. So weigh in on the comments. In the meantime, while I'm doing that, I'm gonna just get the okay. I'm copying the link for the debate if you want to join, and I'll put that in the channel right now. Yeah, so there is the link in the channel right now. Hopefully you all can see it. So I just put it in the chat. Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, Mr. Robot, I know you've had a lot of comments on a lot of my videos, and I've tried to address all your comments, and I've not done a very good job, admittedly. I initially started responding to every single comment on all of my videos, and then I just had to stop doing that just because it was getting too taxing. But yeah, but if you want to join the chat and ask me questions, Mr. Robot, I'm happy to have you ask questions. I'd also be happy to have you weigh in on this topic that we have on the screen right now. So I'm curious to know what you all think about this topic. Should we have a better response to this as small content creators? As a content creator myself, I feel like this is more than about the debate between God Logic and Hijab. This is more about the debate around free speech and the fact that Hijab did something that, by the way, was the worst move you could possibly do. If you ever lose in a debate, don't just copyright strike the other person. That is absolutely the worst strategy. It's absolutely the worst move. It's the worst thing that you could do. And it's exactly what Mohammed Hijab did. So I'm curious to know what you all think about this. Please put your comments in the comment section. We've actually had some other news this week, which I want to get into. So let's just start with this topic as well, too. So we're getting tantalizingly close to really simulating real intelligence through the AI industry. So what do you all think about this? And my specific question is more for atheists. And here's my question. Is there a qualitative or quantitative or materialistic argument that can be made about if we cross the threshold into artificial superintelligence, that we should not cede control of our population, of our human civilization, over to AI entities? And by the way, Mr. Robot, if you want to join the discussion, you can. If anyone wants to join the discussion, you can. You can also ask me your hardest questions for Christianity. So, but I think this is a reasonably difficult question for atheists to answer in particular. And the reason why is, again, we're getting very close to artificial superintelligence. So why shouldn't we just give away the keys to an artificial superintelligence if we get to that point? Is that something we should do? Should we just cede control of human civilization to artificial superintelligence? And if not, what is an argument that we shouldn't do that? I think theology, of course, has a response to this. I don't know that atheism has as persuasive a response that is as consistent with the rest of atheist thought, atheist discourse. And of course, if you want to comment on this video, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this topic. You can comment in the comment section. I put the link to join the chat in the comment section as well. So it's in the chat for this video. Hopefully you all can see it. Or you all can ask me your own questions. Mr. Robot, I know you've had a lot of questions on a lot of my videos. I'm happy to answer your questions. And let me show this link, which is in the chat. So if anyone wants to join the link, you can join the link. If you want to ask me questions, you can ask me questions. And I'm happy to answer whatever other questions you have. So feel free to, comment on these topics that I've put up on the screen. Again, I think this is a question that that theology can answer. I don't know that atheism has a persuasive answer to this question. It looks like Mr. Robot's in the chat somewhere. Yeah, there he is. Okay. All right. So I will just show this other question that popped up in the meantime, and we'll address this question. Why all the hate in my comment section? Yeah, that's a good question. That's something we can definitely talk about. I'm interested in knowing what you all think about that as well. I find it really interesting that the comment section of my videos is as acrimonious as it is. I just think that's kind of an interesting thing. And the reason why I think that's interesting is because, it shows that the reaction to theological topics is uniquely divisive, uniquely contentious, uniquely acerbic. And the reason why I think that's important is I don't meet many atheists or agnostics who are pretty neutral about Jesus, right? If you're an atheist who's left Christianity, usually your feelings about Jesus aren't just neutral; they're really they're really steeped in a lot of antipathy. So I think that suggests that Jesus, even if you don't believe that Jesus is real or is divine, or if you give no warrant to the divine authority of Jesus whatsoever, then I think that still makes an interesting set of, questions on that. Like, in other words, why is Jesus so contentious? So why is it the topic of Jesus so acerbic that people feel the need to not only disagree with me, but if you've seen my comment section, they disagree with me really acerbic on some of these things. All right, let's go to Mr. Robot and see if he's in the channel. Let me unmute you. Oh, I think you are muted.
Yes, I was.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Now I can hear you just fine.
I actually have an opinion on that last topic.
Oh, sure. Love to hear it. And thanks for joining, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not a believer. I was never a part of Christianity or church, but in my youth I was attending church with my grandmother, and she's a Catholic in the Belarus, and Jesus, God, Christianity is not thought is not presented as something you can really talk about critically. So your criticism is met by anger sometimes. So
you're saying you would ask questions about Jesus, and the responses that you would get from Christians, from Catholics, was a response of a lot of anger.
basically, yes. It's not always, but once you really start to push questions, to push your own opinion, you can meet some anger, some disappointment, and this feeling from your relatives, your fellow Christians, starts to mix up with Christianity itself. So once you fed up with this anger, these feelings, you cannot put aside your feelings once you start to talk about Jesus as something you can critically talk about.
Yeah. So, why don't we get? Do you mind if I ask? So, your thesis is that the lack of critical thinking among Christians is an indictment of Christianity itself. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I mean, people cannot put aside their emotions in the comment section, in the debates, because of the history of their encounters with Christians, with those difficult talks about it.
Yeah, but I mean, I would argue that that in and of itself is not an invalidation. Now, I just want to sort of echo and resonate with one of the things that you're saying, Mr. Robot, and I really appreciate this because I started going to a church when I was essentially an atheist, and I was very agnostic for some of that journey, but at least when I started going to church, I was maybe transitioning to being a little more open, and this is going back maybe about 2.5 years. And I went to a lot of churches, and the response I got when I would ask questions was, don't ask questions, just, yeah. So, I mean, I agree that's a maladaptive response. It's not a great response, and it turns people off. But I guess I just wanted to underscore that doesn't itself indict Christianity. And
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I want to explain why people have so many negative emotions.
Oh, sure,
When
yeah.
So, in my opinion, this is because they have a really big history with different people, different believers, different opinions, and
I know KJX is messaging me and is eager to get on the chat. Do you mind if I add him to the chat? I just want to give you enough chance to.
Of course, I do not mind.
Okay, let me add you to the stage, and I'll add. I'm sorry, I'm adding you to the stage, KJX, and I'll add 21st Century Apologetics to the stage. But I want to give Mr. Robot a little bit more of the floor because at the moment, Mr. Robot, you've had a lot of questions on my videos that haven't been answered.
I did.
So now that you're on the channel with me, like, is there anything you want to ask about a specific video?
I'm still did not do my work about your last video. This
No,
is
we can, and you can backtrack because I think you had questions about a lot of videos, and
yeah. My main questions are about your CTF or CFT. I can't remember argument.
Yeah, the CTF argument. Yeah.
So I'm not a scholar.
And KJX, I hope I didn't kick you. It looks like your device disconnected. So if you come back on, just let me know and I'll put you on there. Yeah, but go ahead, Mr. Robot. Questions about CTF are certainly welcome.
Yeah, it's
if you haven't for watchers who are listening to this, if you haven't seen my CTF argument, I think it's the best content that I've made on this channel. So, feel free to check that out. It's on my channel, the CTF argument, comparative theological framework. And in it, I look at a bunch of quantitative parameters. I go through every major religion of the world, and I kind of compare the evidence on each religion. So yeah, all right, go ahead, Mr. Robot.
So from my non-academical, non-scholar perspective, I really do not understand here on my takes. I do not agree with conclusions. I agree with observations, but I do not conclude what you conclude from them.
Sure. What do you think any steps in the conclusion that I offer are justified, or is there a more specific way you can hone it down? And I'm happy to sort of re-explain the thesis.
Yeah.
And then we'll engage the other folks who are in the conversation. KJEC will engage you. 21st Century Apologetics.
Mhm.
You made some great content that we could talk about. But let's answer some more Mr. Robot questions. And
I will try to be more specific. So first sub-argument is about veneration, right?
yeah, exactly.
So different people from different religions tried to
Let me explain that argument around veneration, if that's helpful. I can offer like a bit of just a terse distillation, and that might be good orientation for people who are watching. And we'll open up the floor a little more widely. So, and nobody's muted. So if anyone wants to chime in, you can. So my thesis is this: if you are sort of a rational theistic gambler, and you're looking at the religions of the world, and you don't have a theological commitment, what's the sort of evidence that would tip you in one direction or another towards making a commitment to one school of thought theologically? And I think you would look for areas of consensus. Let me just give you one example. Like let's say you studied every religion of the world and they're all against pork. Well, I think a rational theistic gambler would see that as an area of consensus, particularly if those religions all agree on a certain thing, and also particularly if they all are disagreeing about several other things, right? Then those moments of consensus, those areas of consensus, become much more poignant, right? So the whole point of the CTF argument is to say one of the points is what's an area of consensus that we have. Now, it turns out that when you look at all religions of the world, not all of them, but many of them have this area of consensus where they have a very high degree of veneration for Jesus, not just as a philosopher, not just as a teacher, but as a source of theological and divine inspiration. So I think that's at the very least sort of an interesting observation. To me, as a rational theistic objective gambler with no subjective cultural inclination, if I walk into all the religions of the world and I look at all of them and they're all pointing towards Jesus and Jesus only points towards himself, then I think that, you have an area of consensus that's persuasive, right? And by the way, I just want to underscore that this is not a trivial set of statements that people are talking about here. Let me go ahead and add a tangelo to the conversation. And again, we're dealing with we'll deal with this question from Mr. Robot, and then I'll open it up more widely to the group.
Jesus was an itinerant preacher who wandered through the desert, Tavo. He didn't know anything about Buddha. He didn't know anything about any of those other religions. He didn't speak on them. What do you mean?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so
you can answer KJEC's question, which I think is the question on the floor now. I do want to acknowledge KJEC's question.
So the point that Tavo is making is that Jesus is the one that is quoted by all of these other individuals, right? All right, so you don't. I've studied Buddhism along with other religions. I was a Buddhist for a long time, but Buddha is not quoted cross-culturally. It's just not. It's non-existent. but
He's
Jesus
not-
is. That's the point that Tavo's making.
Buddhism is highly prevalent in Japan. It traveled through India, China, Japan. That's a large claim. 21st century Buddhism spread worldwide. It was the fastest.
I know.
Well,
Ireland,
let me address Kajek's question, because the essentially, Kajek, what you're saying is the focus of, and what's up to Mega Bloodbath Debate, really great channel.
Tavo, what I'm saying is that no religion is special.
Hold on, Kajek.
Hold
on, Kajek. Oh, just one second. Just quick shout out to Mega Bloodbath Debates. Really great channel. I saw that you had the issue with your monetization. Hopefully that went really well. If you want,
please let me say something.
Sure. Let me just highlight Mega Bloodbath. If you want to join the channel, you're welcome to.
Go ahead.
Let me turn it back over to James, and then I'll address Kajek's question myself. But go ahead, James.
Tavo is, unless I'm wrong, Tavo is not saying Christianity as a religion. He's saying Jesus is unique in that Jesus is cross-culturally acknowledged as, okay, let's take it to the lowest level, as at least a man of great wisdom whose sayings need to be taken seriously.
The largest colonial religion that spread itself through aggression, fear, and violence. Of course, they're going to mention him.
Yeah, but
wait a second, Kajek. I don't know that stands. First of all, Islam also spread through. I don't know if there's if you're talking about largest by geography or largest by population, Islam spread rather rapidly through military conquest as well. So I think most ideologies that have spread by humans, period, all stop.
They're all, none of them are divine.
Maybe I can state this another way.
Humans tend to address. Let me address Kajek, because I do want to finish this point, because I want to for this. But Kajek, the point isn't that Jesus doesn't talk about Buddhism. The point is that if you look at all the religions that are in the world right now, if you're a rational theistic gambler with all the information that we have on the table right now, then what you have is a lot of different religions that point to Jesus in a lot of different ways. And I'm not talking.
Take into account.
Kajek, let me finish, because I gave plenty of time to talk, and I feel like if I don't finish this point, it's going to get lost in the stream. And I went back and listened to our last chat, and there were a lot of interruptions, and that results in a lot of sentences being incomplete and a lot of thoughts being incomplete.
If you're saying propaganda,
well, hold on, Kajek.
Saying something that's wrong. What am I supposed to do? Wait until you're 10 minutes in?
Yeah. Wait until I'm finished with a couple of sentences, and then you can chime in and say, this is why this is wrong. Right. But here's the thing. We have the Dalai Lama who venerates Jesus to a very high degree, who calls Jesus as a bodhisattva. We have Baha'u'llah, who founded the Baha'i faith, who calls Jesus the Son of Man. We obviously have a very high degree of veneration of Jesus in Islam. Thich Nhat Hanh, who is one of the greatest Buddhist thinkers of our time, speaks about Jesus as a source of enlightenment, as a bodhisattva as well. We have Gandhi, who called Jesus an avatar. We have Swami Vivekananda, who called Jesus an avatar. We have, Gandhi is independently one of the greatest political thinkers and one of the most interesting philosophers of the last couple of centuries, I would argue. And he actually puts the Sermon on the Mount on par with the Bhagavad Gita. So this is a lot of veneration towards one theological figure that we have in our time. Now, that's a data point to me, and it's a significant one. And you can say Jesus wasn't around during the time, but the Pope doesn't talk about Buddha, right? For instance, there's Messianic Jews, right? Those are Jews for Jesus, as they're sometimes pejoratively called by other Jews, right? You don't really have Jews for Muhammad, right? You don't have Jews for Buddha. You don't have.
Here's what any
of these organizations
says. Here's what Google AI says. Pope Francis frequently mentioned the Buddha and Buddhist teachings, primarily focusing on interreligious dialogue, compassion, and shared values. It's all
sure. Yeah. But the question is theological veneration. Does the Pope ever say that Buddha was divine?
No, I think Jesus was fine. That's fine. as a theistic gambler, that's a new term, and I want that defined. I see 21st Century has.
Yeah, let's turn it back over to James, and I want to get Otangelo to chime in because Otangelo's got great content. You released a really great video today, and again, Mega Bloodbath Debate. If you want to like hop on the channel, I'll give you the floor for a bit because you're a really fantastic channel. But let's give the floor back to James, and then let's make sure that Otangelo has a chance to chime in, and also Mr. Robot. If you want to chime in, feel free to like. I'll try to moderate in a way that gives a lot of people the floor. But let's go back to James for a second.
Yeah, I want to throw something in that probably nobody has thought about here, which is, do you know when the Buddha lived? He lived at about the same time as Isaiah. All right, now, as far as we can tell, the oldest texts that talk about what the Buddha taught are the Patanjali texts. And they taught that he taught the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. All right. And then the last thing that all of them are consistent that he taught was that you shall wait for, I do not speak the Indian language, the Fra Ariya Maitreya, the Lord of Mercy. And he said, when he comes, become his disciples. Now, he's preaching exactly the same thing Isaiah's preaching at the same time. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on what I think this means. I'll leave that to y'all to think about it and discuss it among yourselves for a minute, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, that's fine. Otangelo, so the question kind of that's on the floor now is KJ's question that you know, is there a definition for the rational theistic gambler perspective? Oh, good. Okay, well that's a kind compliment. IB Hayes, thank you for, or Ib Hayes, IB Hayes. I just want to give a highlight to the chat. Hi all, and thanks for the debate. This talk is good. Tavo. Oh yeah, we did a great talk on the History of Valley channel on Richard Carrier. It was quite a while ago, but he just posted it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And I'll go ahead and show this comment from Mega Bloodbath Debate. He's got a really great channel, really interesting. He said he deconverted me the other day. So it's funny, it's cute. Yeah, that's a good idea. Would each speaker in the conversation tell the audience what their religious position is to help with understanding the POVs? Great question. Let's start with Mr. Robot, and then we'll go down the list, and I'll do it last.
So, I guess just an atheist, I'm non-believer.
So, okay, you're a non-believer. Let's go to the next person underneath you, which is 21st Century Apologetics.
Yeah, I want to say that what I find in a lot of these conversations, and it's no insult. I mean, I was in this position a long time ago and got challenged on it. It's that I'm making a lot of claims that seem logical, seem philosophically consistent, but I don't actually know the history behind them. Like what I just said about the Buddha, I had to look that up because I was a really, confirmed Buddhist on this thing. And then I had to go back and research, and what did the Buddha actually teach? It wasn't a Christian exploration. It was an exploration on what do we know that the Buddha actually taught, so I could separate it from all of these different sects of Buddhism and everything else, the same way a lot of people do with Jesus. Well, what did Jesus actually say rather than what these denominations teach? That's about all I got to say about that.
And then KJ, do you want to give just a brief introduction of your theological background?
I was going to say that I'm a slapologist first and a Tavo is second. That's an old joke. I think only Tavo gets it up.
It's an old joke, but a good joke.
A good one. Thank you. I was going to say that basically I'm a non-Christian because I don't want to take the burden of proof. So I'm going to say I'm a non-Christian for now.
Yeah, and then Otangelo, you want to give your perspective? welcome to the conversation, Otangelo. Good to have you here.
Yeah, hi guys. Well, actually, I just chimed in without knowing what actually the topic was. So I have first to know that before I can say anything.
Oh yeah, sure. I think the question was sort of generally from this individual, what are our theological religious positions so the POVs are understood. And we don't, the topic for this video is, I think, talk me into being an atheist. So I just wanted to take people's hardest and most pointed questions for Christianity. And so I'm happy to do that. I did put a bunch of conversation topics on the screen that we haven't really gotten around to. But yeah, but your channel is really great. You had a really great video that you released, I think, just today. So I want to encourage people to check that out.
Yeah, actually, I'm quite surprised with the video which I uploaded 2 days ago.
Somebody's getting a lot of feedback. So is that? I'm not sure where that's coming from. Okay, well, let's keep going. We'll power through. I may have to mute somebody if the.
Yeah, so I was saying that I uploaded a video 2 days ago, and I am actually quite surprised. And it seems that it's going to go viral. It got, I think, 9,000 views until now in 2 days, and for my channel, that's quite a big number.
Yeah, and we did a video, and it got about 2,000 views as well, Otangelo's, and it's really interesting content. A lot of your work is around the Shroud of Turin, but a lot of your personal testimony is really fascinating. All right, let's Mega Bloodbath Debates has a syllogism that he's posed to me in the past, and so I can put that on the screen. And I did invite him to come on and present it if he wanted to. But I'll go ahead and present that to the group as the next sort of challenge towards atheism, towards Christianity. But the idea is that necessarily, if God exists, then God necessarily exists. And I suppose I should preempt this by saying this is the reverse ontological argument for God, I think is the name of this, if people want to look this up. But necessarily, if God exists, God, and if anyone wants to correct me on that, if that's not the name of this argument, it is a very popular argument. Necessarily, if God exists, then God necessarily exists. And the next step in the syllogism is it's possible that God does not exist. So if God is a necessary being, and then he necessarily must exist, but it's possible that God does not exist. And therefore, it's not possible for God to be a necessary being, and therefore God doesn't exist. So that's Mega Bloodbath's syllogism. It's the reverse ontological argument. I'm happy to take it. If anyone else wants to take it, I'm happy to turn it over to any.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Tavo?
Sure, KJ, go ahead. Yeah.
Is that the argument where the greatest possible being has to exist? Is that the one that says that?
No, that's the argument in the other side. The premises of this argument, this is a short syllogism, but the premises are: if God is a necessary being, then God necessarily must exist, right? And therefore, if it's possible for God to not exist, if there's any possibility that God does not exist, then that means that God must not exist. Because
I mean the original argument was there has to be a God because the best thing has to exist. That is the original argument.
I think that argument came from Leibniz, the one that you're citing.
Yes.
I'm not super familiar with it, but we could talk about it. But
no, it's not worth discussing.
Yeah, let's talk about the topic on the floor. So
and I don't understand it.
And Faith from Facts is here too, so I'm going to add them to the conversation as well. And I think we're doing okay in terms of time, but let me. Hi, this is Faith from Facts. I think we communicated via email about the CTF argument, didn't we?
I don't think so. But I would have loved to email you about it. That it was really interesting, but I don't think I actually sent you an email about it. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Might have been somebody else.
I think there's a Faith or Facts channel that I'm going to be on May 13th presenting the CTF argument.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm Faith from Facts, and I'm not really running any YouTube things very much right now.
Okay, well, we do have that syllogism that came from Mega Bloodbath debate. So I don't know, James. All right, James is raising his hand. You're welcome to take this one, James. And well, let's get some insight from Faith from Facts after that.
Yeah, I say that Mega Bloodbath. I agree with you that these philosophical arguments to me are for the most part nonsense. You got to tie something to reality. I mean, if we're just going to sit and philosophize about something, I can philosophize about anything. I mean, this is something that a lot of Christians hate about me, is that I tell them like their tag arguments, their stuff like that. So none of this is grounded in reality. I mean, if y'all want to believe this, if it reinforces your faith, great, fine, but you're not really making any kind of argument that really has anything to do with reality. So I agree with you. I'm a theist. It seems from your question you're not, but I might be wrong.
No,
but
Mega Bloodbath is definitely an atheist, 100%.
Okay, so fine. I agree with you. It's a terrible argument.
Can I piggyback off James? Because I totally agree.
Let's before you piggyback off James, let's give Faith from Facts a chance to respond. I'm trying to moderate in a way that gives everybody a voice here. And we've got a lot of people in the chat, and maybe it's a bit much, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Modern Atheism. Thanks for joining the chat, at least. Happy to have you on later if we're still on. But let's go back to whoops. Oh, I think Mega Bloodbath is running the flip modal ontological. Yeah, that's right. This is the reverse ontology argument, the reverse ontological argument. So, but let's go to Faith from Facts, because I think I thought you were somebody else, but I'm not super familiar with your channel. But feel free to chime in, and we're talking about a lot of different things now. But I'm basically, the topic of this video is just to address people's most pointed questions that destabilize Christianity and sort of address those questions. Go ahead, Faith from Facts, you're on.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry. So basically, the first thing is that if God exists, he's this necessary being, right? And then what happens is that it's possible that God doesn't exist. Okay, that's kind of the second premise. And far as I've been able to tell, what's happening is that they're kind of equivocating on the meaning of possibility, right? So if God exists, and that then what that means is that if, say, we can think of a world, say, consisting only of a taco, what happens is that when we say it's possible that God doesn't exist in that world, we're not actually imagining the world in the complete detail that would reveal the existence of God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's indeed the response that a lot of people have levied against that syllogism. I kind of agree that the syllogism itself and the syllogism framework of addressing that there is a God or there isn't a God is, it strikes me as a little bit hollow, but I feel like it's a cop-out to refute the argument based on that. So, but yeah, the main argument that people run against the reverse ontology argument is that that just because I can sort of imagine a universe that might exist that doesn't have God in it, doesn't mean that that universe is instantiated by my own active imagination. In other words, can you create a universe that doesn't have God? I think that's, if you could do that, and you showed that, you know, there's universes that can exist without God being there, and that they're intelligible universes, that they can be navigated by thoughtful, rational beings, then I think the argument becomes more persuasive. In the absence of that, it's sort of a thought experiment, but there is a bit of a subtle bait and switch in this argument, and the bait and switch is between, can you conceive of a universe that exists, or does that and does that act of conception mean that that it's possible that our universe could be without a God? And I have several other responses to this. For instance, there's a difference between imagining a pocket universe, or sort of a pocket dimension, and imagining our universe. I mean, there's 10 to the 80 atoms in the observable universe, right? So that's a massive number. There aren't even that many neurons in my brain, right? So how do you imagine that? And moreover, how do you imagine the constellation of all the subatomic forces that are working, all the quantum fields of particles popping in and out of existence? So I would argue that it's not possible to sort of answer this question through the framework of human thought. And I think that's where the syllogism itself fails. Hopefully I think that's my personal insight. I think it's a good argument.
I would agree.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
It is a definitional problem. So it, like James was saying, it feels very, if we define God as X and you agree that X is God and is real, then God exists. But that is a non-starter for me. So
yeah, I mean, I can personally sort of imagine a universe, like I can imagine an alternate reality, but that doesn't mean that I can really create through my conception even a theoretical or hypothetical universe by doing that.
I would like to hear people's definitions of God, of what their personal definition of God is. If it's the Christian one, then what characteristics does God have for you is what I would like to hear eventually.
Yeah, let's take a question. Let's get to that, and let's take a question from the audience, just because this just popped up. Do you think LDS is particularly potent in inspiring atheists? I'm kind of curious to know what the group thinks about this one. I think this is also an interesting question. The reason where this is interesting to me is because I've had some debates with James Fodor. He was actually a former LDS. He was Mormon. I've been told recently that the term Mormon is offensive, but James Fodor is we had a long debate, really great conversation. But he's a former Mormon. He's a former LDS. I had a bit of an exchange of a few different videos with Mr. Deity. It's a really interesting channel, but he's also a former LDS. And I think when people are brought up with a religious argument that is really a pastiche of cogent theology, then it becomes much easier to sort of rebel against that by rebelling against all theology. All right, let me open it up to the group. Faith from Facts, we don't know that much about you, but since you're on the channel, you're welcome to chime in on this as well.
Yeah. Well, so here's kind of my perspective on it. Like, I can't say that I know like a whole bunch about the Mormons, but like what I've kind of seen in my interactions with them is that they have this kind of faith against the evidence sort of epistemology. And I think what happens is that that's a very deficient way of knowing things, is that you say, okay, I don't care what the facts are. They're secondary at best. I'm going to go ahead and put my faith in this thing. What happens is that I think that is a fertile ground for your faith breaking when it actually does run up against a good epistemology, you know?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective. Just to echo one of the things that you're saying, you know, I think LDS is fascinating. I think if there's any religion that is interesting to study, LDS may be the best candidate of a religion that is just sort of interesting to study. But there are a lot of anachronisms in the Book of Mormon. All right, let's turn it over to James. I think James has some insights to share on this.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm the standard Protestant sola scriptura guy, but my position is I want to get the closest to the people that were the closest to Jesus and what they had to say, and from there, when I look at it, a lot of this stuff just don't make a whole lot of sense. They just added a whole lot of baggage, a whole lot of stuff to it that just don't agree with it, and I'm not. I mean, I have my understanding of the New Testament and my high Christology, but let's say we go when we talk about Trinitarianism, Arianism, adoptionism, modalism, all this stuff. I think all of those are just broad misunderstandings of the Hebrew way of thinking about this stuff. And I know I'm introducing something that nobody else has really thought about a whole lot, which is how does Hebrew change your thinking? But that's something that I look at in Mormonism, and a lot of these is they are definitely not Hebrew thought. Now, it doesn't mean I ain't saying they're not Christian. I'm not saying they can't find their way to Christ. Just like I wouldn't say that Trinitarians can't find their way to Christ, or that adoptionists can't find their way to Christ. But I would say they are definitely not thinking in the Hebrew terms in which the Hebrew Bible states itself in Hebrew. So there we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Looks like I'm muted. Sorry about that. Like you said, you have a lot of content on that set of topics specifically. I'd recommend people check out your content because it is fairly esoteric, and I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole right now. But there is another question from another viewer who's another channel that I'm not super familiar with, but I really appreciate you joining us. So let's do that question really quick. And KJEC, I know that there's still a question from you on the floor that we haven't really gotten to, but this is from Analytical Apex. God is the God of all realities. Picture the Metatron cube. That is a map to the multiverse. Everything comes from and returns to the source. One line, God controls all. One line is random. Another, a dream. Another virtual one, where he another virtual one where he exists and one where he doesn't. And there is an exact copy of this universe on each line, as well as a copy reversed 2 inches to the left, and each per person on this panel are speaking the words of the other. Oh, that's interesting. I kind of, when I see the first third of this comment, the first third of this stream, I think that's sort of a refutation of the reverse ontological argument. But again, hopefully we'll have a mega bloodbath debate to present the reverse ontology argument. It's a really good argument. It's fun to talk about, but it is something that people can just look up on their own, and so it's not necessarily novel. What I kind of like about my own CTF argument is it's somewhat novel. Now, there is a question on the floor that we didn't get back to, which is the question from KJEC, which is, what does the word God mean to each of us? Right? I think KJEC, I think you asked us that. So
yes.
Let's go back through that, and we can have Mr. Robot answer first, because I know you've not been on the channel as much, and then we'll do Faith from Fact.
And actually, Tavo, can I add something? Don't mention Jesus in your definition. And I know we've got some Christians on here, but what I would like is a definition of God that you accepted and then said, Jesus or the Christian God is that. So I would like it if the Christian religion was not part of your definition, if you understand what I mean.
Sure. Let's go with Mr. Robot first, and then we'll go back to it. And by the way, I think it's reasonable to ask that, KJEC, but let's let people answer in their own ways. All right, Mr. Robot, you want to answer that?
No, I mean, I don't have a picture or a concept of God because it does not come from my mind, my own perspective. It only comes from different cultures, different people. So I know different concepts of gods. It may be even some creature that is not divine, but it's cosmic horror that we can call a god, something that is more than us, more than our own mind. So I know many different kinds of gods, I believe.
I mean, I think the question can be answered definitionally, even from an atheistic perspective. So that's kind of what makes it an interesting question. Let's go to Faith from Facts, because again, you're fairly new to this channel, and I appreciate you being here too.
Yeah, it's great to be here. So what I think of fundamentally, what is God? There's basically two ways that I see the universe as being presented as organized. The first is this kind of mechanistic, computer-like, physics-like thing. That's what's at the kind of the bottom of reality. And then the second one is that there is a mind at the bottom of reality. And for me, I think the most basic definition of God is probably the mind that is at the bottom of reality.
That's an interesting argument. I think that sort of dovetails into the tag argument. So let me kind of lob it over to Juan. I know we've got a lot of people in the chat, so I'm trying to like sort of moderate and give everybody a chance to have their conversation piece. But Juan, like you've been thinking a lot about that lately, the tag argument. I feel like that is sort of a bit of an appeal to the tag argument, like sort of implicitly that Faith from Facts is making. So anything you want to say there?
I don't think he's saying that. He didn't say that the laws of logic or the preconditions for knowledge are grounded in that mind. He said that this mind will be like at the very bottom of reality, like it will be the cause of reality, or it will be the most fundamental level of reality, which is different, I think, right? It will be like, no, it will be more like traditional theism by saying that there is a mind that is the cause of all reality, right?
Yeah, here's a viewpoint on this. It reminds me of the panpsychist view. I guess here's my conceptualization, which is John von Neumann's argument, which is how do you have a universe that's intelligible if you don't have a God underlying that universe, underlying the mechanisms. Let's turn it over to James because I think James has some stuff to say. And we'll get to, there's another question on the floor as well, so we'll get to that. Extraordinary conclusions require extraordinary evidence. Good argument. I know KJ will want to talk about this. Let's turn it over to James first.
Here's the problem with the question that is diametrically opposed to the Hebrew Bible and the Hebrew language, is that mind is not a noun in Hebrew. Mind is a verb. Okay, so the way you're framing it, Juan, is that there's a mind that is the cause. There's something, there's a substance. That is not the Hebrew way of looking at it. There's an event that's taken place that is so coherent that we can say that everything else flows from it. It's a huge difference that we have been basically, I hate to say it this way, that we've been tricked to ignore. And it wasn't on purpose. Nobody tricked us to do this. It's just that they use Indo-European languages. And Hebrew is not an Indo-European language. It's verb-centric. It's like Boehm's Rio mode. It's like Navajo. It does not function like an Indo-European language like Greek or English. And so we are continually trying to force this idea of God that's in the Hebrew Bible into a language that just does not capture or cannot even convey what it is that the Hebrew is trying to explain. Now, I know that sets everybody off. You know, it's like, oh, well, we don't understand nothing. Well, I'm in the same boat. I think in English. I'm constantly fighting against this and trying to learn how to think the way biblical Hebrew works, or the way Navajo works, or the way lambda calculus works. These things just do not work, or the way quantum physics works. These things just do not work the way our language is. And if we keep trying to force God into these categories, they're going to keep breaking. And the atheist can say, yeah, there is no God. Now, I don't know if there are arguments that can be made against God in those verb-centric language. Maybe there are. We just haven't explored that yet.
Right. But when the Bible authors say God, they refer to a subject with a mind, right? I don't think they refer to an event, like to an event itself, right? I don't think God is an event, right? And maybe, or neither though the Hebrews don't believe that either, right?
No, they use the word El, which is force, Elohim, which is forces, or the name Yehovah, which is basically if I'd have to go through how you conjugate this name, but it means the one who was, the one who is, and the one who will be. Or if you want to use the Aye, Asher, Aye, which is in Genesis 3:14, he says, I will be what I will be. It's a process. It's a verb. It's not a noun.
Okay, yeah, let's get to the next question, because I want to address a question from the queue. And this is the question that I think is probably next on the docket. We do have a question. Are we able to join the video? This is from Michael Henry, who I know we've had some really great back and forths on the channel. I'm happy to have you join the channel. There's a lot of people on the channel right now. But I know, like, Mr. Robot is like, you know, I feel like I'm kind of moderating right now, and that seems to be okay. So if you think there's too, okay, James, go ahead.
Oh, I want to say one thing, Juan. I love the way you are tearing down this Indo-European centric language about God. I mean, that is totally adding to my cause. It's wrong, and I don't want to say that people aren't saved or that they have no knowledge of God because they think that way, but it just doesn't capture what the Hebrew is. So you're one of my greatest allies in this fight by tearing this down. Okay.
Let's keep the conversation going, because I do want to get to these questions. So I tell you what, Michael Henry, 1763. What I'll do is we'll address the next question that Discvol has been waiting on, which is this question here, and then I'll bring you in after we do a round of answers to this question. And so this is kind of the next question on the docket that I'm happy to answer. But I feel like I'm going to give this to Kajek first, because I know Kajek has some strong feelings about this, and
I do.
I'll let you kind of give the pro case. Extraordinary conclusions require extraordinary evidence, and then I'll myself give a bit of a refutation, and then I'll let faith from facts give a refutation as well.
The original quote was, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence," which seems on its face true. I think that if you say that is not true, then you would have to believe every single claim that all religions make. Now, that's not bad, but you would have to accept all miracle claims of all religions if you said that this was false. Now, a claim, sometimes you can just accept a claim. I was sick today. Okay, sure. And you can just, now, my dog was sick today. Sure, okay. My tiger was sick today. I'm going to need some photographs. My triceratops was sick today. I'm going to need 3 forms of ID, a psychological evaluation. Same thing with saying that you came back from the dead after dying for humanity's sins. That is a huge, extraordinary claim that requires huge, extraordinary evidence. We can't just accept claims based on hearsay and scant claims from other people who might have agreed based on the mythological conceptions of people from 2,000 years ago. I don't know if I explained it very well, but that's my best conceptualization of the argument just now. If you disagree with extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, you would have to agree. You would have to accept every single claim.
Yeah. So let me address that first, and then we'll get to you, James. I'll get back to you. And I put an invitation in the chat too. But I really want to thank Mr. Robot for coming by. So thank you again, Mr. Robot. And I also want to thank Modern Atheism, who's at work right now, so he had to leave as well. So thanks, Mr. Robot, for joining. Thanks, Modern Atheism, for joining.
Pray for me. Pray for me. They left me alone with these 3 bastards.
Well, no, come on. Let's not insult the folks who are here. You can tell me all you want, but
James knows I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
I appreciate you joining, Mr. Robot. I really do appreciate that very much. I appreciate Modern Atheism. Modern Atheism's got a really fantastic channel, so I would encourage people to check that out. I guess I'll take this first. And I think Michael Henry, if he joins, is also an atheist, so probably like very aligned with your viewpoint. So that might make it a little bit more even, KJ, if you're worried about that at all. Although I'm trying to be pretty impartial in who I give time to. All right. So let me take the counter position. So I think you've given examples of what extraordinary claims are. You've not given an example of what extraordinary evidence is, but you've also not given any definitions of either, right? So if you look towards the academic literature, the scientific literature, this statement, this standard, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You don't actually see that standard anywhere in the literature. We have standards for evidence, right? And we have standards for various degrees of certainty based on that evidence. But we don't ever have in other words, I've never had a paper rejected because the claim was too extraordinary, right? And I've never had anyone say you have to use a different evidence standard. And just briefly, so that people in the audience know my background, I'm a university professor and I'm a journal editor for 2 different scholarly journals. So I'm fairly familiar with the statistical evidence lines, and various different fields have different standards of evidence. Some of those standards include p-values. Some of those standards include other evidentiary thresholds. Like, for instance, in physics, you have to have evidence beyond a certain sigma.
Can I have some follow-up questions when you're done, Tavo?
Sure. Yeah. You're welcome to ask me a follow-up question. I want to open it up to faith from facts after that, but here's my point. There's no definition for an extraordinary claim. There's no definition for an extraordinary evidence. This is an argument that comes from rhetoric. It doesn't come from anything in the sciences. It doesn't come from anything in academia. And that's the most persuasive evidence against it. I think when you set up the argument that you're setting up, that if you accept claims without evidence, then you're going to accept any claims. I think that's kind of setting up a straw man. I'm still saying you can weigh the claims. I'm still saying you can weigh claims based on evidence, but I'm saying we don't label claims to be extraordinary. And unless you have a definition, the whole discussion is meaningless, I think. All right, let me open it up to faith from facts, and I'll let you ask a question after that, KJ. And after that, we'll get Michael Henry on.
So for me, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence is, in one sense, kind of obvious. Because, if you have a low prior for something, you're going to need more powerful evidence to overcome that low prior. Okay. However, in my experience of how this is actually applied is that extraordinary gets really squishy really fast, and that eventually it just turns into more evidence than you currently have, Yeah,
I think that's a valid point. Now we'll get to your question, Darren, right after this, and then we'll bring Michael on after that. But KJ, I promised you that we'd give you the chance to ask some questions about that. So
this is a very important topic.
Yeah, sure. Follow-up questions, KJ?
Well, I mean, there are extraordinary is it's not a scientific term. I'm not asking for p-values. And again, even Bayesian, how often have miracles occurred in the past? We've never observed them. We've never observed a miracle. You are asking.
How do you know that?
We are asking. Well, there's a whole. That I don't.
Let's give KJ a little bit more time to answer. Then James, I know you're chomping at the bit, so we'll get you back in. Let's give KJ a little more time to defend himself. Go ahead, KJ.
I would say that if you're asking for a scientific, so Tavo is trying to box me out by saying that extraordinary and ordinary are exactly the same because they have no definition in the scientific literature. Now, what I would say is that miracle is an extraordinary situation. And what we need is evidence that is more than hearsay. Is the line I will draw a line in the sand. We're going to need more than a couple scant writings from historical mythologists, and because all religions have miracles in them. Now, if you want to believe that all religions are true and that all miracles have occurred, then okay, I guess. but that is an outlying position, to be sure. I hope I'm doing my fellow atheists proud in the chat. I doubt it.
I think you're doing great, Kajek. I mean, I'm happy to let me. There's 4 of us, and I want to give everybody a chance to talk. And maybe what I should do is try to be more of a gatekeeper. But there's 2 people who want to join, and Michael Henry's been waiting for a while, and then Darren's been waiting for a while too. So let me add Michael Henry to the stage at this point. And we've not met before, although we've had some exchanges in the comments. So I'm really grateful that you're here. So thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear it. Did I skip over you, James? Did you have a chance to I think you were chomping at the bit, James. So if you're in the queue to say something, James, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, that maybe a lot of people don't know, but as far as I can trace it, the claim extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence comes from Carl Sagan. Okay, Carl Sagan was honestly, after reading all the Carl Sagan I have, I think he was doing that kind of tongue in cheek, because he was well aware of the evidence that all crows are black is simply one black crow. So it's
standard. I'm not saying it's a scientific standard, James. I'm saying that if you say you didn't make my party because your triceratops was sick, I'm going to require extraordinary evidence.
Well, but you're giving us an example, but you're never giving us a definition. And without a definition, I think the debate becomes meaningless.
Yeah,
I'll say it again. The extraordinary evidence of a white crow disproving that all crows are black is not extraordinary.
A white, with my own eyes, I'm seeing it with my own eyes. This
is Russell's paradox. I mean, the mathematician Russell. Okay, so go ahead.
Paul would say that he saw Jesus with
weirdness is going on. We got to have a good faith debate here, guys.
Well, people would say that Paul would say that he saw Jesus with his own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
let's bring in Michael Henry, because there's another topic on the horizon, which is the CTF argument, but I want to let you weigh in on this. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. What do you think, Michael Henry?
Oh, well, yeah, I agree. It comes originally from Carl Sagan. I think it's a fun rhetorical term. Again, I agree that all it really means is that if you're asking something that cannot be proved easily, that we need more information. We just need more evidence, whatever that is. I like the idea, right? If you have a triceratops or a raptor, unless you're in Toronto, right, with the raptor. But, if the raptor, you would have to see photographs. And then in today's day and age, you have to see, okay, is it not AI generated, right? Yeah. So, or can you see it? Do you have an egg, right? That sort of thing. That's all.
Well, let me open it up to the next question, which is about the CTF argument, which I think is going to at least be interesting to some people, and Darren's in the queue as well. So I'll keep trying to moderate and give everybody enough time to answer. I do want to close this out with one thought. There was kind of a statement that was thrown out that miracles don't happen, or miracles are by definition extraordinary. I don't know that there's a really good definition of what a miracle is. I don't know that you can define miracles as things that can't happen by any scientific means. I've given this example before in different debate settings, but I saw a patient with widely metastatic renal cancer, metastatic renal disease in multiple different locations. They happened to be religious. They prayed. They were Catholic. And all their tumors spontaneously regressed. Now, at the time that I saw that, I was an atheist. I did not take that as evidence for God. But somebody would look at that and say, yes, that's a miracle. That's something that's extremely surprising. Now, did we do anything extraordinary to verify that? No. We did the same thing that we did for any patient with widely metastatic disease. We did a staging CT scan. So we didn't need any extraordinary evidence. We had ordinary evidence. The ordinary evidence was definitive. But again, I think it sort of disproves the example.
So God saved that one lady, but the poor kid in the next room died from cancer?
I'm not making any theological claim about that particular healing miracle, but I think I think that there's at least some interesting argumentation that can be made that there are people who say, I mean, I met somebody the other
And
day.
then the tsunami in Japan, God didn't commit a miracle to save all those people?
Well, I want to switch topics a little bit because I don't want to get into the problem of pain and suffering, because unless we want to switch topics, definitely. But Darren's on the queue. James has something to say. Let's let James something to say his thing. Then we'll get to Darren's question and we'll bring Darren in. But go ahead, James.
Yeah, on what Tavo's talking about right now, a miracle. I don't know if any of y'all have read any of Frank Tipler's work. He's a physicist at Tulane University. He wrote The Physics of Christianity. A lot of his stuff is kind of speculative in there. But one of the things he pointed out is that we can define miracle as the extreme of a bell curve, which is what Tavo's kind of talking about here. It's not like it's physically impossible, but it's such an extreme that we gotta kind of question, how does this actually happen? The physics and stuff can support it, the chemistry can support it, the biology can support it, but it's not something that we're going to see every day. And why did it happen at this particular time with this particular person? Well, I can go a long ways down that road, but I'll just stop right there.
Well, let me bring Darren into the studio, and I'm trying to do a fairly good job of at least allotting each person with adequate time. But maybe I'm making a bad decision by bringing too many people in. Let me know in the comments section what you think about that in the chat. If you think this is too many people, because I've only been live streaming.
I think it's fine.
My third or fourth time, yeah. So Darren voiced this question. And now they're in the chat with us. And the question is, how does CTF lead to the truthfulness of the supernatural claims made by Christianity? It's a really great question. Darren, you want to rephrase that or echo on that? And thank you for joining us, Darren. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just a question that I've had ever since I saw your CTF video, is that you have a lot of other people saying things about Jesus, but I don't think I've ever seen you connect the dots between that and Christianity actually being true.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll happily answer this first, and then I'm probably the right person to take other questions on this. So if anyone wants to ask me any other questions on this or on CTF in general, I'm happy to answer your questions. So in my mind, CTF is a comparative framework, right? So now here's what I would suggest to that. So basically, I look at each religion and I said, which religion has the strongest evidentiary base to have a truth claim out of all the religions, out of all the theologies? Now that's
and how are you defining evidence here?
Well, I think there's like 13 different arguments that I have in CTF. The empirical things, the things that go across all religions. One is, how quickly does a codex develop? Right?
I know that part. I was just wondering what your definition of evidence is, because as far as I can tell, you didn't actually present any evidence in the CTF as far as the truthfulness of Christianity goes. So I'm just curious.
There's two sets of arguments in CTF. One is empirical, and those cut across each and every theology. And the other is qualitative, and those are sort of aspects of Christianity which I think are persuasive to the paradigm of the theological gambler paradigm. And I would encourage people to check out that video. I'll put it in the comment section of this video if I get a chance here. But so let's go through the evidentiary.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
How are you defining evidence?
Well, again, so there's two types of claims. There's the empirical and the qualitative.
No, I understand you are calling what you presented as evidence. I'm trying to figure out how you're defining evidence in the first place. What is
And there's 6 different criteria for arguments that are made. And James, I know you're chomping at the bit, so I'll open this up to you again as well. But so the 6 different criteria include: how quickly does a codex form? How quickly does a creed form? How many witnesses are present in the first 50 years of each religious or each theological tradition? Is there antagonistic evidence? What is the time gap between the theological narrative at the beginning of each religion and the and those claims being attested to? Now, the reason why I use this is to get to your question, the reason why I'm using this as evidence is because this is the evidence that comes from academic historical scholarship. Okay.
Right, but none of that points to the truthfulness of it.
Exactly.
Well, again, let me keep going on this because it is an important point. So my argument when I present the CTF argument is twofold. First of all, I would argue that from an atheistic worldview, one would predict that the evidence distribution would not be lopsided, right? There should be
Why
a
not?
roughly even distribution of evidence, right, between all the religions. In other words, all the religions should have approximately equal
I disagree with that
evidentiary strength.
strongly.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd
let
also
me
might
finish
disagree
the
with
let
that.
me finish the argument. Yeah. So I would argue that atheists would predict a lopsided distribution, or I'm sorry, an even distribution. And what we actually have is a very lopsided distribution. Okay? The second point is this, okay, and this is a bit more of a nuanced point. But when you look at the qualitative arguments that are part of CTF, what I did is I looked at 32 different events that occurred between 10 CE and 60 CE. These are all events that historians do actually agree happened, right? And they're all events that have left behind no physical evidence, no geological evidence. So, but we know that they happened. Now, how do we know that they happened? Because somebody later on wrote down that they happened, right? So my question then becomes this: how do you parse out the events of Christianity from these other events? And what I looked at when I looked at that set of 32 events is I said, all these events are written down or all attested within roughly the same time frame as the narratives of Christianity in terms of the attestation lag and the written testimony about what events actually happened. So my point is this: you can't actually parse out the Christian events from these other events and say you accept these other events happen based on testimonial evidence, but you don't accept that the Christian events happen based on testimonial evidence that has the same qualities. Now, the usual response to this is, well, you know, the Christian testimonies were motivated by theological considerations. Here's the problem with that: the events that we know did actually happen, where historians, there's actually consensus, historians say this stuff actually happened, right? Those sets of events that we have, those events were attested by people who had very thickly opaque theological lenses for looking at the events that were happening around them. So there are often a lot of theological, you know, coloring, and there's often a lot of theological coloring around those events as well. So my question is this: if your evidentiary standard is, you know, I will not believe something unless I see a video for it, then obviously there's no way I can convince you that Christianity meets your evidentiary threshold. But if your standard is you agree that the academic consensus of history is useful for interpreting the validity of evidence that have happened in the remote past, then I would argue that there's no way to parse out the Christian events as invalid and accept other events that we know actually happened as things that really happened without making some sort of an arbitrary evidentiary standard.
Tavo, I seriously disagree with your first.
I'll get to you, James, but let's turn it over to Darren first because he just hasn't had as much time, and then we'll go back to Kajek. Go ahead, Darren. You let me talk for a while, so I appreciate that. Oh, go, Darren. I think you're muted. Let me see if I can unmute you. Okay, no, Darren is muted. So
Yeah, sorry about that. I mute myself when other people are talking so I don't make a lot of noise and disrupt them. I think there's a lot to go over there, over what you said, though. First of all, we wouldn't expect an even distribution. That's just not how statistics work. Secondly, historical criteria.
Wait a second. Can you qualify that or provide some more analysis behind that?
Well, an even distribution assumes everything's happening in a fair manner, like on a dice. We don't expect a fair distribution when it comes to history, especially when it comes to a big religious history, because
why
so
not?
much
Why shouldn't all the religions have roughly equal patterns of evidentiary attestation?
Because that's just not how statistics work.
That's
We
not
have
how
no
history works, Tavo.
Yeah, it's not how history works. It's not
That's
how
not how
statistics
cultures
work.
work, Tavo. That's not how the world works, Tavo.
But you can't just say that's not how it works. You have to explain why that isn't how it works.
Different cultures. Go ahead. Kick his ass.
I'm just using the same criteria you did. You didn't give any reason why we would expect a even distribution. I'm just saying under an atheistic worldview, we wouldn't expect an even distribution. You can take that as you like, but the first premise of your argument is flawed because that's not what But
Well, the first, just to clarify, the first premise of the argument is that the CTF argument is a comparative lens for comparing different theologies, right? That's the beginning of the argument.
well,
But
you
I
know what
think
it meant.
there's at least some interesting insights on the debate between theism and atheism. Now, I haven't gone back to Michael for a while, so Michael, if you
Well,
want to
let me finish a couple things
go
real
ahead.
quick.
Sure. Go ahead, David.
First, if we're going by historical criteria, then all the supernatural elements of Christianity gets thrown out at the opposite, at the beginning. That's just how the historical criteria works. And then as far as the academic consensus, that would be a lot more impressive if the academic consensus wasn't all Christians who most of them sign a statement of belief in order to even become employed at most of the Christian schools that are doing a lot of that consensusing.
Well, I agree.
And yes, that is a word.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that that's a source of bias. I mean, and that's sort of a separate question whether or not that's problematic. But I don't know that disqualifies all the analysis. But here's the final point. Here's the final point that I just want to make. Historians don't actually reject theological evidence by academic standards. Historians do qualify that evidence, right? And they sort of bracket it and they put it in a different category. But they don't say because this is a theological event, we're going to reject it.
No, I didn't say theological. I said supernatural.
Oh, yeah. Even supernatural. There's no rejection of the supernatural.
Tavo, I have a question for you.
It's bracketed. E.P. Sanders has written a lot about this in terms of historical academic standards.
Tavo, I have a question. When
Sure. Let's go to Michael, just because I think Michael hasn't had a chance to weigh in much. Michael Henry.
You. Appreciate it. Thank you. One is I think that a miracle, the idea of a miracle, is in the eye of the beholder. Right. So maybe I just skipped back. I'm sorry. I just went backwards.
Oh, it's still relevant. Yeah.
If someone said that their cancer receded, right, to them, that would be a miracle. Now, objectively, scientifically, you could consider it rare. You would have to, as you said, you have to think about like the conditions, why that happened. Could that person have a particular gene, a particular resistance that maybe could be duplicated for other patients later down the line? But that's neither here nor there. But I think that we don't have to assume that there is a best religion. I don't think there is a best religion. I think religion is a cultural product. So just as I'm not going to say English is the best language in the world, right? Every country has their language, and that language and their culture and their religion fits that community, fits that country. So that's what I think religion is. Now, when it comes to Christianity, I would throw in Judaism, I'd throw in Islam as well. These three religions are about literature, right? So you are going to see more documentation in Judaism, in Christianity, Islam, and also you're going to see it in Buddhism as well, because the early Buddhists started using printing hundreds of years before Gutenberg, because they felt they wanted to preserve the words of Buddha. But none of those cultural ideas, those cultural ways doesn't make it true. So I would agree that if we're going to look at it historically, most likely we're going to throw out supernatural. For example, if I'm reading, Julius Caesar, right, and he claims that the gods came down and did something, I'm not going to believe it. Emperor Constantine, when he claims he saw a cross in the sky, I'm not going to believe it, right? Or if Josephus, if he's talking about the fall of the temple and he sees something flying across the sky and he thinks it's supernatural, I am not going to accept it, because I think that a miracle in the end is an explanation for the unexplained of that community. A miracle is only good in the religion that it serves. So, for example, right, if I was Roman Catholic and I was living in, I want to say Portugal, I think it was what, 1917, 1914, around that time, the little girls of Fatima, you know, they claim they saw the Virgin.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Fatima. They claim they saw the Virgin Mary. But I grew up now I'm an atheist, but I grew up Protestant. I grew up Presbyterian. I never believed in Mary. Why did I never believe in Mary? Because I was never taught to believe in Mary. And so I would never see Mary in the sky. If that makes sense.
Sure. Let's just I'll go to James and Kajek, but let me go back to faith from facts first. If you have anything that you want to say about this.
So I think that one of the things he's trying to get at is Darren was trying to get at was that how does this add to the probability that Christianity is true? And what I want to say is that it actually doesn't directly add anything, but what it does is it says, okay, we have these 5-10 different options or whatever for it. How do the claims compare here? And so what happens is that you're like, well, there's one that definitely has much better quality of claims, much better quantity of evidence. And so because of that, it's going to be the most useful to spend the most time looking into that. Also, something that's the actual answer is going to have more of this evidence. And so by comparing them, we get hey, there's a blip on our radar here, and that's how it kind of contributes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, what do you say to the question? Well, let me ask you a follow-up question. So how familiar are you with the CTF argument?
I watched your video about it a while back and haven't really thought about it since.
Yeah, I've got a new video. I've got a new video coming out. So yeah. So we'll hopefully have some other stuff coming out about it. Sorry, I just got a text message that I had to respond to. Well, I want to turn it over to Kajek and I know, James, you've been waiting in the queue for a while to say some stuff. So why don't you give it over to Kajek and then we'll go back to James.
First of all, I think it's hilarious that we're debating God when he's here in the chat with his magnificent beard. But what I would say is, I'm just trying to get goodwill. The first
Bless you, my son. Live long and prosper.
Amen. Enjoy that stogie. So what the first point of the CTF argument is, what would we expect to see? And what I think, I want to turn it around and say, what would we expect to see if a religion was divine? We would expect to see near perfect morality, 99.99999% perfect morality. Instead, Christianity and Christians were the beginners of the slave trade. They fought for slavery. That Jim Crow, the Bible can be interpreted.
Wait a second. So some of these claims are really anti-historical. You don't mean literally Christianity started the slave trade.
No. What I mean is that it spread the slave trade globally and colonialized and brutalized.
Wait a second. The Roman Empire was 20% slaves way before Christianity came around.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So
I think that's not an evidence-based claim, but I should give you your fair time to respond.
Well, what I mean is, it's more about the first claim. And let me know if I'm totally off base on your CDF argument, Tavo. But the first claim is, what will we expect to see? That they're all even? No, one started in Rome. I myself would worship Quetzalcoatl if I could, if I had the guts. But I didn't. I wasn't from Maya. I'm not Mayan. The Roman religion, of course, a religion that started in Rome with an awesome death like the crucifixion for its iconography, would spread.
It was in Jerusalem.
it was extremely aggressive. It's plowed over all the pagan religions. It doesn't mean that there's actually a God, but this points more to the first point of the argument. What would we expect to see? We don't expect to see anything. The data is all over the place. This is not, as my friend in the bottom left, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, Darren. Said, if God, God is here in the stream. We would expect to see uniform results with a dice roll, not with cultures and history. That's not how history works. So, the first argument does not. We do not accept that, or at least I don't.
Well, let's turn it over to James, and then I'll have a few points in recap, and then we can switch to some of the other questions that are being asked in the chat. But James, go ahead.
Okay, first, unless I've got the CTF argument wrong, he's showing how these other religions accept Jesus. Now, what are they defining as divine? They're defining as divine someone who can step outside the fear of death and sacrifice his own life for someone else. All right. And they're considering that Jesus is the epitome from this. Therefore, he must be divine. All right. Now that don't justify supernatural necessarily in the Christian sense that he's God in the flesh, but it's divinity in the general sense that the what we call the enlightened religions, maybe they're not enlightened, I don't know, I ain't going to debate that point right now, but the popular religions that we consider enlightened considered him divine because he was willing to do this. All right, so that changes the whole debate. All this supernatural stuff that everybody else is bringing in is good, but those are auxiliary points, in my opinion, unless I'm wrong. Tavo, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but that's not the point Tavo is making. In my opinion, the point that Tavo was making is that the divinity is the teaching that Jesus had, and the fact that all of these other religions accept this, even the ones that started out as well, for lack of a better word, for pagan. They said, hey, yeah, this is better than the pagan stuff we had. This is better than Zeus, raping Leda, and all that other stuff. They said this is a lot better. And then they kept progressing, and they got their avatars and all that stuff. And they said, hey, look at this Jesus guy. He's living it out just exactly the way we thought it ought to be. All right. So that's my position on the thing. And I would like to address, a lot of the other things y'all have brought up about supernatural stuff and miracles and stuff like that. But as far as I can see from the CTF, and again, tell me again, Tavo, if I'm wrong, but this is what the CTF is saying.
I would just disagree with the idea of divine. I'm so sorry.
Let me can I, so that was that we're going back to that was back to Darren who's talking then, right?
No, that wasn't me.
Who was that? Sorry, who said that? Was that Faith from Facts?
No, not me.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, well, James had the floor. I'm happy to do just a little bit of fact checking for some of this stuff that's being said. Are we all in agreement that we're all in agreement that some things that are being said are just factually false? Christianity did not start slavery. There's 20% of the Roman population were slaves in the Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. Within Rome itself, there was probably about 30 or 35% slaves.
Yeah.
Correct.
Within human history, the fact is that slavery of some sort existing is the normal condition, and a lack of slavery is the abnormal one.
I was being hyperbolic, but Christianity and the conquistadors and the clan and the Confederacy were all Christian. They are just as bad as a non-divine belief system. That's
Yeah.
all I was trying.
But so if your standard is better than a non-divine belief system, then we actually have some evidence. If your standard is,
Can I say something real quick? If I was a Kajekian and I went and committed some horrendous crimes because I said I believed in Kajek that he was the Son of God, would that make you false?
Yes.
Oh God!
yeah.
But that's not possible. As a true Kajekian, you wouldn't be able to. I would stop your hand.
Well, okay, so there have been a few questions in the chat that have popped out, but now Sam Davey has a good point. I know there was some conversation about this in the chat, but we're all on the side of the historicity of Jesus, right? We're not. Does anyone want to make the case for mythicism, right? I think this is a valid point. I think that Jesus did exist. I think it's a good foundational point to underscore.
Well, I think that's highly. The only reason people think that Jesus exists is because the Bible says so. And
that's not true. That's not true at all.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Bart Ehrman. Well, I mean, Bart Ehrman doesn't believe in much in the Bible. He still believes Jesus existed, right?
Right,
So
but he only believes that because the Bible says so.
Well, wait a second. I think what you're saying maybe describes some people, and some people may be getting their historical information from the Bible. But many historical scholars believe that Jesus existed, that was a real individual who don't believe in the Bible. And
right,
moreover,
because the Bible says so. They don't believe it because they have other evidence outside the Bible. The Bible is the evidence.
Josephus.
Yeah.
Like
you also have Tacitus. You have
well, Tacitus was several centuries.
No, he was I think 100-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's start with Josephus, right? Josephus's experience in Judea was at least within 10 or 15 years after the death of Jesus.
Right, and he was reporting what Christians were saying.
Well,
wait a second. He was not reporting what Christians were saying. He was part of the Sanhedrin, right? He was part of the response to Christianity.
Right. Technically, we don't know where he got his source, so we can't say he got it from Christians.
Well, wait a second. We do actually have a lot of information of where he got his information. He was the governor of Galilee. Yeah, that's in the historical record. I mean, so we.
I agree with you.
And we can also say that he personally knew people like Ananus II, who was at the trial of Jesus.
Okay, just a question: has anyone actually read all of Josephus? Because I have. Anyone else?
I've not.
It's been a long time ago, but yes.
Because he talks about Romulus and Hercules and all these other people as if they're real too. So. Saying that Josephus talks about Jesus as if he's real and he hasn't.
Quick question for you. Does Josephus ever talk about a sibling of Romulus or any of those other individuals? No, right? But he talks about James the Just, who is the brother of Jesus, and he calls him the literal brother of Jesus.
But all Christians were called the brother of Jesus at the time.
No,
so
that's not true. Christians were never called the brother of Jesus. They were called brothers and sisters in relation to each other. They called themselves slaves to Christ. They called themselves co-heirs to Christ. But Paul never refers to himself as brother of Jesus. Now, I will have to say that, thank you, Tavo, one of the frictures within the atheist community is our debate among ourselves whether Jesus existed or not. But
and to be clear, I'm not a mythicist. I just think that the evidence is just as strong for Jesus existing as that Paul made it all up.
I think it's very doubtful that Paul made everything up.
Yeah.
I think it's. I'm actually doing a lot of research into that. I have yet to find anyone who can provide actual evidence that Paul didn't make it up. And I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying the evidence is the same as is the evidence that we have currently is the same as would be the same for either hypothesis.
What's the evidence that Paul? What is the positive affirming evidence that Paul made up Jesus?
Well, the positive affirming evidence is that Paul. Well, first he sounds like a con man. I mean, if you've ever read how con men.
Well, that's not positive evidence that he made Jesus.
But that's just sort of an aside. I'm just saying.
And
Jesus in history is never mentioned before Paul.
He's the worst con man ever. He basically ruined his life. He was an extremely high level person in the Pharisees. He was a direct student of Gamaliel, who was one of the most
he was the leader of a new church. I mean, that sounds pretty successful to me.
He did pretty good for himself.
And he was on house arrest for the rest
Pretty
of
damn
his life.
good. And
was
he
on
had a
house
good
arrest for the rest of
scam
his
going.
life.
He had a great scam going.
Okay.
Well, okay, let's
if I
go
can
back. Let's go
split
back
the
to the
difference.
affirming evidence that Paul made
He
up.
had to sew tents because he wouldn't take any money.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah, there's.
Hey, I didn't say he wasn't crazy. I didn't say
Okay,
he
well,
wasn't
the
a
question
nutcase.
on the table is affirming evidence that Paul made up Jesus.
Well, first off, there's no mention of Jesus before Paul. Absolutely none.
You
So-
mean
That is
written
correct.
there, but that's not true at all. We have
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we have the First Corinthians Creed, which preceded Paul.
Yeah,
Have,
you only
there's about,
but you only
there's about a
but you only
dozen
think you had
other
that because of
statements in the
Paul.
Bible that precede Paul.
Right.
You only
but
think you
that-
had that creed because of Paul. You get
right,
that from
but that's
Paul.
not the
So you
same
think
thing
Paul-
as it being from Paul. Paul is quoting something that comes from before him.
You don't know that.
But this is
It's
still
like
not-
me
You
reciting the
only think
Declaration of
that because
Independence.
Paul. You only think that because you think Paul is telling the truth. If
Okay.
Paul is lying,
Let me try and give the floor back to James, because I know James is. I've kind of skipped over James a couple of times. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, all you have with the Greek New Testament is post Bar Kokhba. Does anybody even know Bar Kokhba? Bar Kokhba was a guy that claimed to be the Jewish Messiah in 135 AD. Now, when the Bar Kokhba, that was like the culmination of the 70. They destroyed the temple in 70 AD. Then it was changed to what is it now? Palestine. They established Iolia Capitolina. They put the Temple of Jupiter there. The Bar Kokhba rebellion. We've got the fact from the Bar Kokhba letters that everybody there spoke Hebrew, still spoke
They spoke
Hebrew.
Arabic, not Hebrew.
And then the Emperor Hadrian issued the anti-Jewish edicts, which outlawed anything even resembling Jewish. The hair locks, circumcision, the Hebrew Testaments, anything written in Hebrew. That's why all we have is the Greek New Testament.
Okay. And let me ask you a couple of other follow-up questions. Darren, can you name any professor in the U.S. or Canada or really anywhere? I'll take anywhere in the world who believes that Jesus was mythical?
does it matter?
I think it matters a little bit. I mean, this is a densely evidentiary topic, and we have a massive academic consensus that points away from what you're saying.
Well,
I
except
can't
the academic
find a single
consensus is
professor.
made of Christians who want to believe, so that's not really impressive.
There are plenty of
That's
secular
not true
universities.
either.
There are
This
plenty of
idea
secular
of
professors and
there's a
atheist
lot-
professors
there's
who
a lot of
believe Jesus
New Testament
existed.
studies, yeah.
I know they do, but they only believe because the Bible
Okay,
says
well,
so.
wait a second. Wait, but I mean, we've refuted that, even though that's a
No,
that's a-
you haven't refuted it.
Yeah,
All you've
because
said
I-
is that you believe Paul when he says there was an additional creed. You haven't
no,
said
no.
any-
What I've
anything
refuted,
to refute it.
what I've refuted is your contention that that all people who believe that Jesus was a real historical individual.
Well, I didn't say
only
all.
believe
I
that-
said the consensus. Consensus isn't all.
Okay, well, how about this? Can you name any academic publication that says that Jesus was mythical? Any publication in the peer-reviewed literature?
Well, there's been at least 2 or 3 that I know of.
No, there's zero. How many?
No, there's 2 or 3 because
no, there's
Carrier put his stuff in the academic literature.
Okay,
You may not like it, but that's at least
that's fine.
one.
No, let's do Carrier then. How many publications does Carrier have in the peer-reviewed literature?
I don't know. He's got dozens. He's
Three. He's
Okay,
got
so
three.
that's
Okay, no,
some
that's
right
3.
there.
Yeah, but none of those 3 are about a mythical Jesus. So he's published 3 times in the scholarly literature. None of his publications in the scholarly literature are about making an argument for mythicism at all. They
Well,
have, in fact, nothing to do with the mythical Jesus.
his big books on mythicism were
And his big book was not peer reviewed. On
yeah,
the
it was.
Historicity of Jesus was not peer reviewed.
yeah, it was.
It was not, and I can prove it to you.
No,
Sheffield
it
Heath-
was.
No, I can.
I was there while he was waiting for it to be finished peer review. I was there listening to him.
and I
complain about
I
it.
can prove to you that it was not peer reviewed.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Well, I can do it right now. Academic peer review requires. I can do it right now. Academic peer review requires a double-blinded process, right? The editors have to be blinded, and the authors have to be blinded. In other words, the author and the editor have to be blinded to each other. For example, I'm an editor for 2 different scholarly journals, right? When somebody submits a paper to me, I send it off to one of my reviewers, and that reviewer doesn't know who the authors are. They're blinded to all the authorship information, and the author is conversely blinded to all the editorial and all the reviewer information.
I got to.
No, you agree that's the definition of peer review, right? That's the definition. You have to be blinded, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna believe believe Carrier over you, since he's the one that went through the process.
That's fine, but can you? Well, before you decide that you're believing Carrier over me,
not about his mythicism stuff. I don't.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. But let me finish the contention at least before you say I believe Carrier, because I'm. So first of all, I know Carrier says that Carrier says his latest book was not peer reviewed. Okay, that's interesting. So that's a comment from the chat from OptiMeg. I'll show that on the screen.
Well, yeah,
so first of all, I made a whole video about Richard Carrier. I recommend people check that out. Second of all, I recommend that you do a thorough Google search about Richard Carrier, because there's a reason why people have reached out to me and said interview Carrier, and I'm not platforming. There's a really specific reason for that. So I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't comment on the fact that some really huge miscarriages of justice are happening right now that I don't talk about on my channel. I don't talk about Richard Carrier in any pejorative way, but I would just say, if you're listening to this chat and you haven't done it, do a Google search on Carrier. Okay, but the third thing that I want to say is, getting back to the peer-reviewed point, right? Who are the biggest peer reviewers of journals in the world? There's Elsevier. There's I'm not remembering the other 3, but none of those 3 published Carrier's book. Who published Carrier's book? Sheffield University Press. Did they have any peer-reviewed process for any journals that they have? No. How many employees do they have? About 12, right? How can you access their reviewers? You can access their employees. It's a matter of public record, right? So that means that by definition, the reviewing process for Carrier's book could not have been double-blinded. It's not in the peer-reviewed literature. It could not have been double-blinded. And if it were so persuasive, there would be other articles that corroborate that. I know that Carrier has made the claim that he's peer-reviewed, but Carrier has also made the claim that he's a professor. He's not a professor. He's never been a professor, but he identifies himself as a professor. So I think you have to, at the very least, I think I would say take what Carrier says with a grain of salt. Now, I know that James has been chomping at the bit for a while, so I'll turn it back over to James.
Yeah, okay. Carrier to me is a joke. I mean, and this is why, because I know the Old Testament. Now, you don't have to be an expert in Hebrew. Just read the Old Testament. As far as mythic construction, the whole New Testament is based on Old Testament constructions. It uses Old Testament language. It uses Old Testament theories. It is not. There's no way that it came from any later mythology. I'll give you one example, and this is one of my favorites, but because of my fight against Zionism right now, I hate Zionism. Okay, and it's that in the blessing upon Ephraim and Manasseh, it says that that's where it uses the term fullness of the Gentiles, which Paul uses again in the book of Romans, which he's talking about this dispute. All right, now that doesn't come from no mythology. That comes directly from the Old Testament. And that's just one example. I could tell you others, like Hosea, like where he quotes Isaiah 28 in response to speaking in tongues in the Corinthians church. I mean, none of this is coming from any kind of mythology. It's just totally, it's just made up stuff. I mean, if you want to, go against Paul, or if you want to refute Christianity, if you want to refute the Old Testament, fine. But don't make up stuff just to convince people that it's wrong, because that's more wrong than if it was wrong and you were saying it was right.
All right. Well, I'm okay leaving the topic of mythicism unless anybody else wants to chime in on it. And I hope I didn't steamroll you too much, Darren. I'm really grateful that you're here, and I'm glad that you're chatting with us.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Well,
I was looking at Sam's comment that Oh, whoops. Well, I'm behind.
There's a few comments in the chat, and it's been a lively chat, and I'm really grateful for that. And by the way, if you're new to this channel or if you're new to this chat, check out my channel. Please subscribe. Please click the like button on this video. That does help us out. We're a relatively new channel. I've only been on YouTube for about 8 months now, I think. So, so check.
I was. Sorry, Tavo.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was looking at Sam's comment that, quote, 500 people in the Bible said X. It's very important to remember, yes, there I am, that the Bible is the claim, and sometimes you can trust a claim if the claim is mundane enough. You can. I didn't come to the party because my dog was sick. Okay, and from there, but the claim is not the evidence. So I just wanted to say that the Bible is the claim, and Christians constantly think that the Bible is evidence. No, it is the claim. So I just wanted to throw that out there if anyone was confused.
Yeah, I mean,
I love the idea that
Hold
Jesus,
on. Oh, no. Hold on. Let me.
yeah, let's
please.
Go ahead, Jim. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're in a court trial, right, and somebody introduces a diary, the diary can be evidence. It doesn't mean everything in the diary is right. It doesn't mean everything in the diary is true. All right. So we got a compendium here of some testimony from people that were collaborators, to use the worst term, collaborators and conspirators to push this movement of Christianity. I'm going to put it in the worst light. So we have their cohesive conspiratorial testimony. That is admissible evidence. All right, so you can't just dismiss that.
But James, I'm not dismissing it, but it is the claim. It is the claim. So if a cop writes me a speeding ticket, is that, and he comes on the stand and says, yes, he was speeding, is that evidence or just the claim? It's just the claim.
No, it is evidence, but it can be ignored or believed.
It's just the claim. The speeding ticket is the claim, and he's just saying, here's the claim again.
No, it's evidence. It is evidence because it's an eyewitness testimony saying it. Now that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that the evidence is true. And the jury can say this evidence is that he's lied, but it is evidence.
No, it's
not.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that this distinction between claim and evidence, as if they're really distinct things, isn't really true. There's
Exactly.
like a claim is what you think the evidence proves, right? And evidence is just anything that makes one hypothesis more likely over another. And something can be a claim and make the it more likely. So, for example, if I tell you, hey, my best friend's birthday is tomorrow. Oh, that is a claim. My best friend's birthday is tomorrow. But it is also evidence that my best friend's birthday is tomorrow, because it raises the likelihood that my best friend's birthday is tomorrow.
No,
sorry, I said that.
No. Hold on.
Now, wait a minute.
The evidence is what the person says they saw.
Let me just try to rein it in a little bit, because there's a lot of people talking. We're close to the 2-hour mark. I wanted to talk about some of the slides that I have on the screen, but I think somebody's trying to say something, and I'm losing track of who's talking, just because when too many people talk at once, I can't tell. But we've heard from James on this, the claim versus evidence distinction. We've heard from Kajek. Anyone else want to chime in on this? I'm happy to give my 2 cents on this, but I've talked for a lot of this video, and I'm happy to.
I would just say that the claims are like placeholders for the evidence. They're not actual evidence themselves. If you don't have evidence to back up the claim, because the evidence is what determines whether the claim is true or not. And evidence has to be a fact. It can't be just something you make up, because that doesn't point to a truth or not.
Please let me address this, because I've been in legal situations. I know what the difference is.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Okay, the evidence is the fact that the person testified to this. That is evidence, whether it's believed or not. That is evidence. The claim is what the evidence means. Those are two different things. Paul's saying 500 people saw this. All right. The claim is that Jesus rose from the dead. You separate those. Did the 500 people actually see this? Maybe he's lying about it. Who knows? But this was the evidentiary claim that he says, I know 500 people. Now that's hearsay. That, I mean, you're going to have to go under the hearsay rule in court. It is admissible, but it's admissible under certain constraints. But the thing is that it is evidence, but it's not proof of that the claim is true that Jesus actually ascended. Now, I hope that clarifies it for you, because I understand the dispute that everybody's going through, but the difference between evidence and claim is very distinct in court.
Yeah, but we're not in court. If you want a reliable way, a reliable definition of evidence, it can't include just making things up and calling it evidence.
Well, let's kind of zoom out to the theological origin of the Christian claims. Now, I do want to, again, I just want to be a fact checker here. I put a quote on the screen from Darren. All the information that people think they have of pre-Pauline Jesus comes from Paul. None of the Jews in the time of Jesus became Christian. None in the history, etc. I lost my train of thought. But I mean,
actually, that's not even all of what I wrote.
Oh, okay. Well,
apparently there's a
let me see here.
Word limit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there is a word limit. I don't think I can control that, unfortunately. But this is factually incorrect, right? It's a factually true. Yeah. It's factually true that the word Christian wasn't a word, so it would be anachronistic.
Well, I'm not saying the word Christian.
The Jews who well, let's say proto-Christian. I think that's a better word for it. You can call it the way, or you can call it early Christianity, you can call it proto-Christianity. But a lot of the Jews actually became Christian and separated away from traditional Judaism.
After
we know
Paul,
that from
sure.
historical scholarship from Jewish individuals, right?
Yeah,
we know
after Paul.
Hold on a second. Let me just finish my thought here, because I'm happy to give I'm trying to give each person time to express themselves and express their argument. But from my standpoint, I have to sort of have a complete thought to express myself. But here's the point, because I think this does get missed in the debates very often. There were about 7 centuries of the Jews being oppressed by kings who were trying to eradicate or erase Judaism and get people to convert to their religions. None of that was successful. What is the largest en masse departure of Jews from Judaism, percentage-wise? It's actually the Jews who left Judaism to join proto-Christianism. And if you don't believe me, look up a book by Yehuda Liebes, who talks about the early miscibility between the proto-Christian community and the Jewish community. In fact, his thesis is that the Jewish Amidah, which is the central part of Jewish liturgy, it was actually written by a Christian. In fact, he says it was written by Simeon Bar Clopas. And he actually has specific verbiage that he points to. And again, this is not coming from a Christian apologist. This is coming from an Orthodox Jew and a very well-respected Hebrew scholar. So what Liebes contends is that Simon Bar Clopas actually wrote a big chunk of the Amidah. Simon Bar Clopas was himself the cousin of Jesus, right? He was the son of Clopas. Clopas was the individual that met the resurrected Jesus on the road to Emmaus, according to the narrative based by Luke. So this is factually incorrect. I've heard this claim from a lot of different people, and just to fact check this claim, there were a lot of Jews who, in the time of Jesus, joined this proto-Christian movement. Now, there was a lot of miscibility between the Jews and the Christians at this point, and the stark separation between people calling themselves Jewish and calling themselves Christian really didn't accelerate until probably about the year 130 CE. But there were indeed people who left traditional Judaism to join the proto-Christian movement. And in fact, that was the largest departure of Jews from Judaism at the time. In history, that remains by percentage the largest departure of Jews from the Jewish doctrine, the Jewish orthodoxy.
Yeah, I am aware. The point is that it happened after Paul.
So what we have from Paul are 7 letters that clearly indicate he is enmeshed in a pre-existing community.
Yep,
not that
is
he
his
is
story.
creating a community.
Yep, that is his story.
What do you mean by
He's a
his
con man.
story?
He's going to make up a story.
So he's not making up a story. He's writing letters in response to questions he's being asked, and what he indicates. So, for example, when he says there's this Apollos guy who's running around talking about Jesus, there's this other guy you've been baptized in the name of. What this indicates is that it's not only Paul who's running around in this Christian community. He's not going in and creating this Christian community out of nothing. You know,
that community was built. I mean, those letters were near the
you're saying
after his community was already built.
Darren, you're saying that Paul was specifically, explicitly lying to the people he was writing the letters to, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that strike?
That's the hypothesis. I don't know if it's true or not, and I don't necessarily believe one way or the other. But the evidence all points to the hypothesis that Jesus was a real person, and the hypothesis that Paul was a con man that made it up like Joseph Smith did for his religion.
Well, wait a second.
They're all the exact same.
There's
a lot of evidence that Paul did not write all of the epistles.
Well, you have the authentic letters of Paul and whatnot. But
I'm talking about the explicit, the letters that are the authentic letters of Paul.
Yeah.
In the authentic letters of Paul, Paul calls Jesus. He says Jesus was born of a woman. He's invoking Old Testament.
Yeah, he can say whatever he wants.
Well, that's true, but it's hard for me to imagine that somebody who is as orthodox as Paul is going to be so deceptive. I mean, he believes lying is a sin, right? Now let's turn it back over to James.
Joseph Smith made up his own stuff for his religion. I mean, it's not like it's unique or unexpected.
But Joseph Smith did not come through the Pharisaical training. He was not a rabbi. He was not steeped in Judaism. In fact, he was a con man before he started a new religion, right? So I kind of find it a little bit.
Except you only think
turn it back over to James. James,
you only think Paul came through
my kind of prophet. Let me tell you.
Well, let's turn it back over to James. I appreciate the liveliness of the discussion. We'll probably start winding down fairly soon, but James, go ahead.
Yeah, let me agree with Tavo, but let me push this point a little bit further here. All right, it's clear y'all do not know the Old Testament. All right, Paul, even modern Jews like the Jews for Judaism, like Tavo Singer, he doesn't say that Paul was creating some myth, or that Paul he grounds Paul firmly in the Old Testament, but he differs on the point that Paul was interpreting for Jesus what he interprets as being for all Israel. All right, so that totally destroys all of these arguments y'all are coming up with. I mean, Paul, there was no later mythicism. Paul was totally a first century Jew. Everything he wrote in the New Testament is first century Jewish. And I don't know of any Jew that disagrees with that. I don't know of any Jewish rabbi that disagree with that. All they disagree with is the way Paul interpreted.
Yeah, and I'll go as far as to say I don't even know of any scholar who will say that Paul is lying or is a liar. I think everyone believes that Paul's experiences were in his own mind at least earnest. I think that's fairly agreed upon historical scholarly consensus.
Yeah, but the only reason they believe that is because he wrote down stories. I mean, you keep saying that all these scholars' consensus is that Jesus was
my view
there and that Paul was telling the truth, but they only think that because it says so in the Bible.
Well, my view of the scholarship is more nuanced.
Exactly.
There's scholars who are Christians, but there are scholars, but there are many scholars who are not Christian. There are many scholars who are diehard atheists who are very persuasive biblical scholars and who contribute a lot to scholarly literature.
But why don't the Jews like Tavo Singer deny Jesus existed?
Saying that Paul was completely accurate brings in a lot of crazy claims that.
Well, no. Wait a second. We're not saying that Paul is completely accurate. What we're saying is that Paul believed in earnest and in sincerity that he was giving.
How do you know what's in his mind? How do you know he was telling the truth? How do you know he was hallucinating?
How do we know?
No. Wait a second. That hallucinating is a very, very different accusation. What's on the table right now is that he was specifically lying about Jesus. Right?
What's the difference between lying and truly believing? You can't reconcile them from outside of his mind.
That's actually not true. That's actually not true.
Paul
historical scholarship is based on
lying, Tavo.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. Historical scholarship is based on looking at original sources and looking at internal cues of veracity, right? So we don't take those books at face value, but we look at things that people have written, and I didn't see what modern atheism is going to say about this. OMG, you are at. He's probably going to say 2 hours. Yeah, we are at over 2 hours, so we're probably going to wind down. But I know Jackie wanted to weigh in on this, so I'm giving a little more time for Jackie to show up. And the reason why I want Jackie to show up is Jackie narrated our last video. It was a really fantastic video. I recommend people check that out. Jackie's a new collaborator, and we had a lot of people who were in the comment section saying that Jackie is an AI. You can call those people, I guess, the Jackie mythicists. So my hope is that Jackie will at least come to.
I take your word for it, but she sounded like AI.
Oh no! See, that's why I gotta like give Jackie some representation. Well, why don't we?
If she's good enough, then AI would have been trained off of people that talk like her. So it's not that she sounds like AI; it's that AI sounds like her.
Okay. Well said. Well said. Well, all right. Well, who are we? Okay. Well, I mean, I'm happy to talk about well, you know what I think we should do? It's past 2 hours now at this point. Let's wrap it up with some closing statements. Some of you are people that I've not talked with in real time before, and some of you are people that I'm not even familiar with. So I would welcome you. You're all welcome to like message me in advance if you want me to schedule one of these like streaming sessions around your participation. I'm definitely happy to do that. I'm going to be going live. I'm trying to live stream every single Monday at 5 p.m. So if you ever want to join me, you're all welcome to. You've all established during this conversation that you're very persuasive, very cogent thinkers, and I'm happy to keep the conversation going. And I'm happy to admit that I'm maybe stating some things with a lot of epistemic certainty for purposes of this conversation. Whereas, as I've acknowledged in my channel several times, my own perspective is personally based on a lot of calibrated uncertainty and epistemic humility. But let's do a round of maybe closing statements, and let's. Are you okay starting the closing statements, James? And then we'll go down the list.
Yeah, I'm fine. One thing I would like to say, I'll try to keep this under a minute, but I'm autistic. And so a lot of the ways that I understand arguments and respond to them is not the way normal people do. And so I've explored, and I've got what I think is my favorite joke and the best way to explain that. So I want to tell this joke to you guys. Okay, so there's this autistic hillbilly like me who's sitting at a bar, right? And this drop dead gorgeous girl walks in and sits down next to him. And she looks at him and she says, "You know, I will do anything for $20 if you can state it in 3 words or less." And he said, "Anything?" And she said, "Yeah, I mean anything." He said, "For $20. And she said, "Yeah, I mean $20. And so he looked deep into her beautiful eyes and he said, "Paint my house."
Okay, is that your closing statement? All right, well let's go right down the list. KJ, any closing statement? Oh, and by the way, let me actually before I do that, let me just give a huge shout out to modern apologetics or progressive 21st century apologetics, right? That's your channel, right, James?
Yeah.
Really fantastic channel, really interesting stuff. A lot of the content that you've made recently is really quite interesting. I look forward to seeing more of your content. We've really only scratched the surface. Now I'll turn it over to KJ. KJ, do you have a channel?
Technically, I do. I have 7 subscribers from my awesome comments through the years, I think. But I don't post videos. I'm an unpublished author. But one day I might post videos if I care enough. But one thing I would say is that I really am married to the idea that extraordinary claims, like that someone sacrificed themselves to themselves for a 3-day weekend because a lady ate an apple, require extraordinary evidence. That is the number one thing I would like to say, and I would like to add I would like to add that I am almost a Tavoist. Tavo, you almost got me. I'm almost a Tavoist. And I would like to say that this quote, I would like to end with this quote from Bill Burr. So God is everywhere, but I got to go downtown to worship him. And when I get there, I owe him money. Thank you for
I love Bill Burr.
well, KJ, I want you to know that, like, I mean, I think we started off in the comment section of my videos from a very oppositional perspective. And it gives me great contentment and strong faith in the ability of the human mind to sort of at least acknowledge and move past differences, that we've had so many great conversations on here. So as you know, you're welcome to email me if you want to schedule just a one-on-one chat for one of these live streams. I'd be happy to do that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And if you wanted me to appear on your channel, I'm happy to do that, because you've proven yourself to be a very thoughtful individual, and I think we've had really good comments, which I was a little bit nervous about at first, because some of, I think some, you used to say like, oh, you're arguing in bad faith and stuff, and I'm happy to go into that more, but I just want to say that I'm really grateful that you're here. I'm glad we had a really nice conversation, and I hope we'll continue to collaborate in any way you'd like. All right, let's turn it over to Faith from Facts, who I'm not as familiar with, but I'm really glad that you're here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be here. I'm apparently a Christian CJack because my YouTube channel is, maybe I'll do something with it eventually, and I'm a wannabe writer working on my second book, trying to get my first one published, all that kind of good fun stuff. Yeah, and so I think my closing thoughts are on something that we've kind of been circling the whole time, and it's that evidence is the bedrock of everything that we argue from. You don't have two sets of evidence. There's only one set of evidence, and everybody draws their conclusions from it. And I guess in the spirit of other people using a quote to end their thing, I believe in Christianity as I believe in the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. C.S. Lewis.
Fascinating. I hope we'll collaborate again as well. I think this may be our first time interacting, but I'd be happy to be on your channel if you're ever doing live streams. And if you want, you're welcome to email me if you want to schedule something, or if you want to collaborate on any content. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, let's hear from you, Darren. And again, we've not talked before. I'm super grateful that you're here. I think you're a very cogent and very persuasive interlocutor. So I do want to give you credit for like asking the questions that you've been and putting the pressure on some of the pressure points of some of the arguments that I've made. But yeah, Darren, would love to hear more from you. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I don't have a pithy quote, unfortunately. I'm not built that way, apparently. But I do just have a few comments. You said the title of this one was convince you that atheism is true or something like that. Sort of unfortunately we didn't get there, but if you really want to be shown by Bible verse that Christianity can't be true, then DZ Debates is actually a pretty good one for that. If you want to, in your next video, did you say you just had a new video with CTF, or you're going to make it, or?
I'll be making a new CTF argument video, just kind of refining the previous argument. And then in May, I think there's 2 different channels that I'm showing up on where I'm going to be making the CTF case. And I've had a few debates around CTF. But,
Okay, well, in your new video, I'd love to see you connect the dots on the facts that you come up with CTF and how that makes Christianity more true. That'd be an interesting add to your current argument. And then the last thing is just the idea of how Christianity started. It's sort of a pet project of mine, because the current evidence we have accommodates so many different ideas about who Jesus was, or if he even existed. And the problem with all these hypotheses is that most of them are consistent with what we actually have with the evidence, whether he was a real person, whether he's lots of different people, whether he was a con man or no man. It all sort of fits in with the current evidence we have. So if anyone has any actual evidence that Paul couldn't have been a con man, because I've been looking for years to find some, then go ahead and find me, because you can find me at Skeptics and Seekers on the boards most days. So.
oh, okay. Are you Skeptics and Seekers? That's David Johnson's channel. But are you oh, let me. Let's let James have a word. And
yeah, I'm not part of the podcast. But
let me not cut you off. These are closing statements. So, Darren, did you anything else you want to say?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much done. I just say that I'm not part of the podcast, but I'm sometimes a guest on the show.
Okay, let's go to James.
Yeah, I would like to say on that, look at Tovia, Tovia, Singer, Singer. He's the head of a group called Jews for Judaism, in opposition to Jews for Jesus. Now, if you'll look at the way he makes his arguments, he doesn't deny that Jesus existed. He doesn't deny that Paul is interpreted in the New Testament. His whole point is that Jesus was not the Messiah according to the Old Testament, and that Paul was wrong according to the way he interpreted the New Testament. Now, the point of that is that this is not mythicism we're talking about. Tovia Singer is tacitly admitting that all of this stuff is legitimate argument within Judaism, but he's just saying Jesus and Paul were wrong. So that would be where I would focus my study if I were you.
Yeah, I've already gone over a lot of that.
Well, all right.
But thank you for the reference.
Well, Darren, like I said, I'll underscore again that you're a skilled and persuasive interlocutor. I hope you'll come by and chat with me again. I want to tell you all a little bit about my perspective. Some of you may already know this, but it's probably worth stating again. I'm a lifelong atheist up until about 2 years ago, when I sort of was, I would say maybe I was agnostic 2.5 years ago, and then I sort of kind of drifted over to faith. But let me underscore a few things in that journey. First of all, I do try to be very academic in my perspective about some of these things. I don't always succeed, and I think like I'm willing to sort of acknowledge their pressure points. Most of my personal theology is still rooted in a degree of epistemic humility and calibrated uncertainty. So there's many things that I'm sort of arguing for here that I think myself I'm sort of somewhere in between on. But I will say this, and I've had this now. This is like the third time that I've live streamed. The one thing that I've come away from several of these debates with is almost everyone agrees that there was at least a resurrection proclamation, and that proclamation was persuasive enough that it ignited a movement. Now, I've never in any of these debates heard any argumentation that supports that there was a different way than that the proto-Christian or the way or the early Christian movement started, other than those two things. So then we have two observations in history that we have to explain: the resurrection proclamation and the ignition of the proto-Christian movement. Now, how can we explain those two things? We have to come up with something that provides a mechanistic or a causal persuasiveness, something that's persuasive, something that's cogent. I think the best two arguments that I've heard are the minimal witnesses argument from Paulo Gia and the RHBS hypothesis from James Fodor, both of which are really interesting and fascinating arguments, but both rely on a lot of hand waving, on a lot of accusation of bias without showing that that bias is actually instantiated. And they both also have, I think, a critical Achilles heel, which is that their strongest positive mechanism, their strongest mechanism of understanding is the idea of post-bereavement hallucinations. Now, to my knowledge, this is essentially the only causative mechanistic explanation for the resurrection proclamation and for the reason why the resurrection proclamation was persuasive enough that it created a movement. But to date, after having several of these conversations with several different atheists, I can't get anyone to really explain how the movement started, other than this idea of post-bereavement hallucinations, which I've debunked in several videos now. And to me, from a very neutral reading of the scholarly literature that's available around post-bereavement hallucinations, it's at best a very tenuous argument. So, all right, I guess I'll leave it at there. We've got some great content coming up. I will say that I did have some discussion questions that I'll flip through if anyone wants to weigh in on these questions. One is the recent Mohammed Hijab copyright strike of God Logic. I think that's worth talking about because I think no matter where you are on the perspective of the debate and who won, or Islam versus Christianity, no matter where you are on the side of that, copyright striking to make yourself look better by deleting a debate from the internet's history is flawed. I also have a video coming out on this, which is the idea of whether or not debates are performative and whether or not we start with our own views and then our reasoning is really just sort of an ad hoc thing that we stick on to that. I really wanted to talk about how large language models are changing the experience of theology. And so these are things for you to think about and weigh in on next time. I think this is an interesting question to ask atheists. I haven't asked that many atheists, but I think the idea of if we create artificial superintelligence, should we cede human civilization to the machines that we create? I think that's an argument that atheists have trouble answering, but it's an argument that's interesting for people on all sides of the theological spectrum to discuss. And there was some really interesting news out there. This is a little closer, at least, to my field of study, but there have been some really, really fascinating hints that we're tantalizingly close to finding life on other planets. I think talking about the theological implications of that would be really interesting, and I hope that is something that we get to address. All right, now I'm going to call Jackie right now on the phone, and let's see if this works. This may not work, but I just want you to know that Jackie's real before I close it.
Tavo,
I believe she's real.
Tavo, I wanted to offer a final benediction before I leave.
Sure, yeah.
I think everyone will agree that Sundays are so nice because all the most evil people are at church. And I'd like to say goodbye to God up there and Darren down there and Tavo above us all.
Okay.
And, one day I'll get my channel going and we'll figure out something. All right, I'll see you guys later.
Well, don't forget, if you're new to the channel, please drop by my channel, check out some of the content. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That really does help us out. And thanks everyone so much for participating. All right, everyone, have a really wonderful day. I mean that to all of you. Thanks so much. And yeah, thanks to Darren. Thanks, James. Yeah.